Pirates are definitely not in the playoff hunt. The American League, Red Sox to Astros. That'll be a good series.
Well, Coach, changing the subject slightly, what have you seen from Kentucky that stands out to you?
They're very confident. They played very well. Eddie Gran is a really good offensive coordinator. Just watching their evolution over the last few years has been kind of, if you're just a fan of football, fun to watch. He does a really good job adapting to their personnel. Obviously, Snell is a very, very good player. Best back we've faced to date. He's very productive. Two-time 1,000-yard rusher, first-team All-ICC player. He's very confident. His backup, number 10, Rose, is very good too. Rose has a lot of skill, and he certainly caught my attention. Quarterback makes plays with both his arm and his feet. Very, very, very dynamic athlete. They had Johnson last year who developed into the position, and this guy, the beat goes on. They feature him. He makes plays, scrambling. He can throw the ball well. And they've got good skill at the wide receiver. Bowden, number 1, is a very, very good player. He plays mostly in the slot. He sometimes is a wildcat for them, and he can throw the ball. I think he's a high school quarterback. He's their number 1 receiver right now. 2 is a deep threat and played very well. Tight end 87 seems like he's been there for quite a while. Conrad, he's tough. And the offensive line, I think they fancy themselves. I think Coach Stoops truly believes in he believes in football, I think, like the way we believe in it here. Establishing toughness, establishing a tough-minded, tough mindset, and really doing a good job with the offensive and defensive line. So they're playing well, and they've played similar to us. They played Central Michigan, and they played Murray State, and then they went down to Florida, and that was a big win for their program. So to beat Florida, that certainly earns my respect.
That offensive line, there's a few returning starts on that unit. They kind of show that cohesion on film.
That's exactly what they do. I think they play well together. They're very well coached. I'm not sure. That's a group that's the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. They play well together. They function well together. They know how to run inside and outside zone. They understand gap scheme plays, and the run game isn't super complex. But what they do very well.
Having schemed against Kentucky the past few years, how much did that help you when you got ready to do a game plan for them?
Yeah, it was the first team this year that we've played that I had some familiarity with, so that was kind of a little bit comforting. I think Stephen F. Austin, in an opening game, you never know what's going to happen. Kansas State was the first time I'd ever gone against them, and as I said last week, I was really impressed with Coach Napier and the job he did. And really, I thought we did a good job. The players did a great job preparing for that game because they came out in what I would term a magic show. They had a lot of different things, but I see Coach Gran and the Kentucky Wildcats. I see a lot of similarities to what they've done in the past. Formationally, Wildcats a big part of their package. Quarterback run game. The standard personnel groupings. 11 personnel, 1 back, 1 tight end. 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, and a little bit of 10 personnel when they put number 33 as a slot receiver in the game. So formationally and personnel-wise, they're they're similar to what they've been in the past. So it was nice having seeing a familiar opponent. Yes.
Do you know who will start in Jamal's absence?
I do.
We don't by design.
I'm not. Rayford and Smitherman. We moved Rayford back to corner. He and Smitherman have done a good job. Tyler Williams and Corey Charles played a lot in the second half of the game the other day. So we're still kind of trying to figure it out. I'm sure they're all going to. I can't say they're all going to play, but I'm sure we're going to have a little bit of rotation in there. Smitherman's done a really good job when he's been in there. Obviously Cam's done a good job through the first 3 games, and Chris is a veteran presence who I think started 9 games last year at corner. So we made the move to safety, but we felt like, for this week, and we'll see how much for the future, we felt like it was in the best interest of the unit to move him back to corner, and then Morgan and Adegoke will back up the safeties.
With Rayford going to corner, is that something that'll revert when Jamal comes back, or is that a full-time thing?
Has to be determined. I'm not sure. This week it's what it is. Chris is the corner, and then we'll worry about next week.
Kentucky kind of has kind of a reputation of being a kind of a gadget play team. They always have like 1 or 2. How do you kind of combat against it? How do you prepare for that?
Did you watch practice today? You must have watched practice. Yeah. And then they do. It's not gadgets. It's part of their offense. That really is part of their offense. Coach Moorhead always talks about getting explosive plays and chunk plays, and we do it with RPOs and things like that. And they do it with gadget plays, whether it's out of the Wildcat, both Snell and Bowden have thrown the ball. Maybe not this year, but they've thrown the ball throughout the course of their career. The quarterback's an explosive athlete who they can hand the ball off to out of the Wildcat. I mean, he does some really cool things. So that, and they run reverses, they do double passes. I mean, I think last year in the game they threw a double pass, against us. I think we got called for interference on it, but they have some unusual formations with the use of unbalanced. And Wildcat, those are primarily the ones that they use, a little formation to sideline, a little jet motion. So, we've worked and practiced against all those things this week. And again, I think in some ways playing against Lafayette last week was helpful because they were truly a magic show. I mean, they FSL, jet motion, unbalanced. They gave us really all of those things. Having a veteran team has really helped. John's very vocal, and John probably played his best game of the year last week. He's had a really good week of practice. John, Mark, and Errol have done a good job this week in practice, communicating and getting us lined up to all the unusual formations.
Kentucky's turned it over 6 times this year. Do you think this is the game where you guys finally rack up multiple turnovers in one game?
I hope so. I mean, we've had an interception each game. We've dropped a couple that maybe we should have had. Fumbles sometimes are random. However, we really emphasize it and we acknowledge that. And they fumbled the ball 8 times and lost 3, and they've thrown 3 interceptions. So I mean, we call guys with bad ball security known offenders, and each week we identify who the known offenders are. And as I've told you, we use the term hunt the ball and shots on goal, and that is a big part of the game plan this week, as it is every week. But it's been addressed with our players as to who the guys we think have poor ball security and that. So I think that's where Coach Granz has to decide. Some of the exotic things that they do require some significant ball handling, and that's where I think he's got to. He has decisions to make as to how, like anybody, how much the team can handle and execute. So that's his challenge. It's not my problem.